Have you ever had someone tell you something they probably shouldn't have, and you didn't even ask? Or maybe you found yourself in a conversation where, without realizing it, you were revealing more than you planned to. It happens more often than you'd think. And it's not always by accident. In fact, there's a name for it. And today we're going to explore a little-known but powerful communication skill that can help you better understand people, protect your privacy, and even strengthen your personal relationships as you age. It's called elicitation. And trust me, this isn't some spy movie trick or government-level mind game, even though it was once used by CIA agents and Cold War operatives. It's something anyone can learn, and once you understand it, you'll start to notice it everywhere. In conversations with your kids, your doctor, the cashier at the grocery store, and yes, even your neighbors at bingo night. It's subtle, it's effective, and it's a skill that becomes even more valuable as we get older. Because the more we know how people tick, the more control we have over our interactions, our boundaries, and even our safety. So, what is elicitation really? Simply put, it's the art of getting someone to tell you something without asking direct questions. That's right, no questions. Instead, it relies on using carefully crafted statements that make the other person feel like they're the one choosing to talk. And because there's no pressure, their guard stays down. Their brain doesn't go into defense mode. They just talk. And the more they talk, the more they reveal. Now you might be wondering, why does this matter for someone like you or me? Well, as we get older, conversations take on new weight. Whether it's navigating sensitive family matters, discussing finances with adult children, or dealing with a pushy salesperson, we all face moments where we want to gather information or protect our own without stirring up tension or mistrust. That's where elicitation becomes a game changer. Let me paint you a little picture. Imagine you're chatting with someone new in your retirement community. They seem nice, maybe a little too interested in your background. They casually say, "I heard Social Security payments went up to $2,000 a month for everyone. That's great, right?" Without thinking, you respond, "Oh, I wish. I only get $1,362. Just like that, you've revealed financial details without a single question being asked. That's elicitation. And that's why learning how it works can help you spot it when it's used on you, and use it when you need to, too. One of the most effective techniques in elicitation is called correcting the record. It's simple. You make a statement that's slightly wrong, and people will naturally want to correct it. It's human nature. We don't like letting misinformation slide, especially if it relates to something personal. It's how a Cold War spy could sit next to a young sailor in a bar, casually mention that American submarines had 18-foot propellers, and the sailor, after a couple drinks, would blurt out, "No way, they're 22 feet." Just like that, top-secret information handed over willingly. Now, of course, we're not looking to extract military secrets, but think about how this works in everyday life. Let's say you're curious how much someone paid for their new car. Instead of asking, "How much did it cost you?" which can feel rude or invasive, you might say, "Wow, I heard those new models are going for $55,000 now. Prices are wild these days." The other person is likely to jump in saying, "Oh no, mine was way less, only $41,000. Boom, information shared, tension avoided. What makes this technique so effective, especially for us as older adults, is that it's disarming. People don't feel interrogated. They feel like they're just setting the record straight. And when you use it with care, never to manipulate, but to connect or clarify, it can open doors in conversations that might otherwise stay closed. Now, here's another everyday example. Let's say your adult child is being tight-lipped about a recent job interview, Instead of pressing them with, "Did you get the job? What did they say?" You try a different approach. Maybe you say, "I saw online that companies like that are barely hiring right now. Bet it's tough out there. What might happen?" They could respond, "Actually, they made me an offer. I'm just deciding whether to take it." Once again, no question asked. But the truth finds its way out. This first technique, correcting the record, is so simple, yet so powerful. And it works best when the information someone shares has value to them. The more personal it is, the more likely they'll want to correct you if you get it wrong. But there's a key here. It has to feel natural. The tone matters. Your words need to sound casual, as if you're just chatting, not fishing for details. That's why elicitation isn't about being sneaky. It's about being smart with your communication. And if you're on the receiving end, if someone else says something just a little off about your life, pause before you respond. Ask yourself, why are they bringing this up? Do I really need to correct them? Because the beauty of understanding elicitation is that you're not just learning how to get information, you're learning how to protect your own. In our stage of life, we've earned the right to speak more carefully, to draw clearer boundaries, and to read between the lines. People might assume that seniors are more trusting, more open, maybe even a little too eager to share. But you're here, learning how to listen deeper, speak wiser, and carry yourself with quiet confidence. That's powerful. And the more you practice these little techniques, the more naturally they'll come to you. So next time someone casually says something that's a little off, or you want to gently uncover more about someone else's story, remember this: people love to correct others. Use that truth wisely, and you'll be surprised what doors open in your conversations. Let's keep going. There's another technique I want to share with you. One that's just as subtle, just as powerful, and incredibly useful when you're trying to understand someone without making them feel interrogated. You see, the moment we move beyond direct questions, something interesting happens. People begin to feel like they're choosing what to share. That sense of control makes them far more open and far less guarded. And this next technique plays right into that human tendency. It's called bracketing. Bracketing is what happens when you don't aim for a bullseye. You aim somewhere nearby and let the other person correct your range. It's like tossing out a ballpark estimate and waiting for the other person to fine-tune it for you. And just like the first technique we talked about, it works because people want to be accurate, especially when the topic touches something they know well. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine you're chatting with a neighbor who works at a local nonprofit. You're curious how many volunteers they're managing these days, but you don't want to come off as nosy. So instead of asking, "How many volunteers do you have?" you say something like, "I heard your team runs with about 50 to 70 volunteers now. Must be a handful to coordinate." Chances are, if you're off, they'll correct you. "Oh no, we actually have closer to 90 now, and let me tell you, it's been a wild ride." Or think about a time when someone said, "That looks like it must have taken you 3 or 4 hours to finish." Even if they're close, you instinctively jump in with the exact number. Actually, more like 6 hours. It was a lot more work than it seemed. That's bracketing in action. No questions, just a nudge. That invites a correction. Now, why does this matter as we age? Because bracketing helps us navigate sensitive subjects without overstepping. Maybe you want to know how long someone's been struggling with a health issue, or how close they are to retiring, or whether they're worried about inflation like you are. A direct question might put them on edge, but a statement like, "I imagine you're thinking about stepping back from work in the next year or two." Well, that opens a conversation without pushing a boundary. Bracketing gives you room to feel things out, to show interest without making someone feel like they're under the microscope. It's respectful, It's thoughtful. And best of all, it works. It also works the other way around. When you hear someone bracket something about you, when they say, "So you must be in your late 60s, right?" Or, "I bet you've been in this community for 5, 6 years." They're likely trying to prompt you into volunteering more accurate info. The trick is to recognize it. You don't owe anyone details unless you want to share. And just being aware of the technique gives you back the power to choose what you reveal and what you don't. There's something deeply empowering about that, isn't there? The idea that conversation doesn't have to be a one-way street. That you're not at the mercy of someone else's curiosity or assumptions. You're guiding the interaction just as much as they are. And when you understand how to bracket effectively, or when someone's trying it on you, you're no longer caught off guard. You're in control. Let's shift for a moment. I want to take you into a slightly more playful but equally powerful technique. It's called disbelief. And it's one of the oldest tricks in the book, but most people never realize it's being used on them. Disbelief is exactly what it sounds like. You pretend you don't believe something, or that something sounds too good or too bad to be true, and let the other person rush in to explain, defend, or clarify. That's when they start spilling the details. Let's say someone tells you they recently visited their grandkids in Florida. You smile and say, "You mean you survived a trip with 3 toddlers without losing your mind?" No way. What's going to happen? They'll laugh and start telling you everything. How the flight was, what snacks they packed, who threw a tantrum, how long they stayed. You didn't ask. You just acted like you didn't believe it was possible, and that unlocked the floodgates. The beauty of disbelief is that it doesn't feel like a trick. It feels like a reaction. It's friendly. It's conversational, but it works. And just like the other techniques, it helps draw out the truth without a single question. Let's take a more serious example. You're chatting with someone who works in real estate, and you're curious how the market's been holding up. Instead of asking directly, you say something like, "I've heard nobody's buying houses these days with these interest rates. Probably dead out there, right?" Now, if that person's actually been doing well, they'll feel compelled to correct you. "Actually, I've had more closings this quarter than last year. It's not easy, but people are still moving." With that one line of disbelief, you've just gathered insights that would have taken a full interview to uncover. And the other person doesn't feel interrogated. They feel like they're setting the record straight. Now, a little wisdom here. Disbelief works best when your tone is warm and casual, not sarcastic or aggressive. You're not trying to call someone out. You're simply expressing playful surprise or skepticism to prompt a deeper response. And that's the thread that runs through all of these techniques. They're not meant to manipulate. They're meant to encourage openness and connection in a world where too many conversations stay at the surface. And if you're thinking, "I don't know if I can pull this off, it sounds tricky," let me tell you something. You already do it. You've lived enough life, had enough heart-to-hearts, survived enough Thanksgivings with family. You've got instincts. All we're doing here is putting words to what you already know. We're sharpening tools you've probably used for decades, just in new ways. Because as we get older, we don't stop learning. We get better at picking up on the quiet cues. We get better at listening, not just to what someone says, but to what they don't. And we learn to speak with more care, more confidence, and more purpose. That's the power of elicitation. It's not about tricks. It's about timing, tone, intention. And when you start putting these pieces together, you don't just become a better communicator. You become someone who others naturally trust, open up to, and want to talk with. Now, there's one more layer to this I want to explore with you. It's not about what you say, it's about how you begin. The very first words you use can set the entire tone for a conversation. And when you start with the right phrasing, even the most guarded person can feel safe opening up. And that's where a few simple opening phrases come in. Phrases like, "So I bet," or "You must have," or even just a soft, thoughtful, "That must have been something." These aren't questions, they're statements, observations. And they have a way of inviting conversation without triggering that little alarm bell in someone's mind that says, "Wait, am I being interrogated?" Let's say you meet someone at a local senior center who just got back from a trip. Instead of asking, "Where did you go?" you say something like, "You look like someone who just had an adventure." It's a simple line, right? But the moment you say it, they'll probably light up. They'll want to share. Because it feels like you notice something about them, like you're already listening, even before they start talking. That's the secret sauce. When someone feels seen and safe, they'll talk. They'll tell stories. They'll offer up the details that would never surface in a straight-up Q&A. And as someone who's been around a few decades, you know what I mean when I say, people remember how you make them feel in a conversation. Not how clever your questions were, not how much you knew, but how easy it felt to talk to you. And here's the really beautiful part. You don't need fancy psychology books or spy manuals to use these techniques. You just need intention, a little awareness, a shift in how you open your mouth and frame your words. Suddenly you're not just passing time at the grocery store or chatting at a community potluck. You're connecting, you're learning, you're building trust, and at our age, trust is a currency more valuable than gold. Now let's flip the mirror. Because understanding elicitation isn't just about using it. It's about recognizing when someone's using it on you. And that's just as important. You know the type. The overly friendly stranger who drops a comment like, "I heard the pension plan in this county is just amazing now. I bet yours jumped way up this year, right?" Or maybe they say, "Isn't it true the veterans around here all get housing perks?" They're not asking because they care, they're asking because they're fishing. For details, for leverage, for anything they can use. And here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to correct them. You don't have to offer a single piece of personal information if it doesn't feel right. A simple smile and a, "Oh, I wouldn't know about that," works just fine. Or even, "I've heard different things too." A phrase vague enough to deflect without being rude. You're not being difficult, you're being smart. Because here's the truth. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. And at this stage of life, we've earned the right to protect our privacy without apology. You get to decide when to open up and when to stay quiet. And knowing how elicitation works, both how to use it and how to spot it, gives you that choice. It gives you the confidence to navigate tricky conversations with grace, to ask gently, to listen deeply, to spot when something feels just a little off. And most of all, it gives you the power to keep your dignity intact, while still engaging meaningfully with the people around you. Now, maybe you're thinking, this all sounds interesting, but do I really need this? I'm retired. I'm not in a courtroom or a sales pitch or some political debate. And you're right, you don't need it to survive. But you know what you might need it for? That delicate talk with your adult daughter about her life choices, where you want the truth but don't want to push her away? Or a quiet moment with your spouse when you're trying to understand how they really feel about moving out of the old house? Or even just a conversation with a friend who seems a little off lately, but you're not sure how to ask what's wrong without making them shut down. Elicitation isn't about control. It's about connection. It's about opening space for others to be real with you, and learning to be real with them too, without oversharing or exposing yourself unnecessarily. And let's not forget the joy in it. There's something wonderful about drawing out someone's story, about watching their eyes light up as they share a moment, a challenge, a memory. When you use these techniques gently and wisely, you're not just gathering information, you're giving someone the gift of being heard. And at the end of the day, don't we all want to feel heard? So if you're willing, try it out this week, the next time you're chatting with someone. At the post office, the pharmacy, the dog park, replace your question with a thoughtful statement. Say something like, "You must have had to work hard to keep that garden looking so nice." Or, "I bet raising 3 kids back then wasn't a walk in the park." Watch what happens. See how people respond. You'll be amazed at how much more they share when they don't feel like they're being questioned. And more than that, you'll feel the shift inside yourself, a new level of calm, of control, of grace in how you handle even the most sensitive of conversations. Because the truth is, life doesn't stop teaching us just because we hit a certain age. If anything, this stage of life gives us the chance to become better listeners, wiser speakers, and more powerful communicators than we've ever been. So whether you're chatting with family, meeting someone new, or just protecting your peace in a noisy world, remember this: your words matter, your tone matters, and your ability to connect without confrontation is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and others. If this video helped you see communication in a new light, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments below. Maybe a time when someone used one of these techniques on you, or how you plan to use them going forward. And if you found this valuable, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, Strong Elderly Life, where we help you live wiser, stronger, and more empowered at every stage of life. Until next time, keep listening with intention. Speak with care. And remember, you've got a lifetime of wisdom worth sharing. Let's use it well.